It's good day, brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy, the hometown commander, and we are back for another episode of Millzy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest and Andrew's quest to outbrew your favorite Magic channel. Friends, Lord of the Rings Tales from Middle-earth is finally here. We've finally seen the whole set. We actually saw the whole set about a week ago. But I wanted to take the week off. We did the Strixhaven content because I wanted to make sure that we planned the content well, that we got you guys great decks. Both Andrew and I are working our hardest to brew decks. I think he's probably way more excited than I am to brew. We're both doing a very good job at brewing. And this week we have some Mod Podge, and next week is going to be Humans Week, all about Humans Tribal decks. So I hope you guys are excited about that. But the deck we're rocking with today is Sauron, the Dark Lord, the big baddie, the key villain. Gets his marquee card, 3 blue, black, red, for a 7/6 avatar horror. Ward is sacrifice a legendary artifact, legendary creature. So it's a pretty solid ward cost. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, we amass Orcs 1. So they've actually changed this now. Amass Orcs 1 means we get an Orc army instead of a zombie army like we used to before, and we would just put a counter on that one. And then whenever an army you control does combat damage to a player, the ring tempts you. So that's pretty cool. We get to deal with the ring tempting mechanic. And then whenever the ring tempts you, you can discard your hand if you do draw 4 cards. There's a lot of interesting text on Sauron. I think there's a lot of ways we could take this. So I chose to go 2 routes with this. The Amass route, I think we can really play into this Amass mechanic. We get the Amass when our opponents cast spells, and I thought the most logical thing to do with that was, well, right, we don't make a new token every time we amass. The way the Amass works actually is that, and I'm surprised it doesn't say it, doesn't have the reminder text on this one. Does it have the reminder text on the other one? It doesn't either. So the Amass works is you pick if you don't have an army already, you make the army and put a counter on it. If you have an army already, you put the counter on it. So my understanding of the way that Amass works, as far as the zombie token and the Orcs token, is if I have a zombie army and I have an Orc army and I amass Orcs 1, I put the counter on the Orc army. If I amass Zombies 2, I would put the 2 on the zombie army. Now, that's my understanding. I could be completely wrong, but that's the way I've taken the role, and that's the way I've built the deck. Now, if it's not the case, then the deck's going to look really weird. But I'm using a lot of the old Amass zombie cards because I think they're still really relevant. And I'm using a bunch of the new Amass Orcs card. And our secondary, of course, strategy, we're making tokens. And, of course, we can amass 1 a bunch, but we, of course, want to take advantage of those. Is going to be a little bit of Aristocrats. We're playing the Amass and we're playing Aristocrats. The other thing we're doing is we get to draw cards, so we're playing a little bit of draw synergies. Not too much. We're going to play some on the back in the background. But so basically, Grixis, Amass, and Aristocrats. So that's the goal. One thing I want to try to do a little bit better with Millzy Brews is break down what the strategy is before we start the deck, because I feel like sometimes I don't do that. But let's get into the mana base. I try my best to play a really fun mana base that does our best to avoid fetch lands and shock lands. I know that's going to be a very interesting thing to say because I'm playing a Grixis deck, and Grixis is, of course, one of the color combinations that's most well known for utilizing, though. But I think I did a really good job. We're still playing the Tri-Land. We're playing City of Brass still, Crumbling Necropolis for the 3-color. Reflecting Pool just got that really cool Tales of Middle-earth reprint in with Noon, so that's great. We're playing Mount Doom, of course, because it only fits. We're playing Painlands. We're playing Checklands because we're still playing some basics. We're playing our Commander lands. We're playing our Innistrad lands. We're still playing a lot of really good stuff. We're playing our Filter lands. I really love the Filter lands. I think they work great in a deck like this as well. The Exotic Orchard is almost always going to get us something good. We're playing some basics. Had to use those new pretty Lord of the Rings basics, especially these Mordor swamps. We're trying out the Black Gate. Black Gate is of course the infamous Lord of the Rings location, but this is in the Sauron precon. It says when it enters the battlefield, you can pay with 3 life. If you don't, you get it on the battlefield tapped. Add a black, 1 and a black, tap. Choose player with the most life or tie for the most life. Target creature can't be blocked by creatures that player controls this turn. So this is kind of interesting. It could get one of our Orcs in for free into a person who has the most life, and that could be pretty beneficial on that. Getting up into our enchantments, this is kind of a Mod Podge. I feel like this deck is just a weird grocery bag of different things, but I feel like it works really well. Age of the Iron Throne, whenever we sacrifice or whenever an artifact or creature we control goes into a graveyard, each opponent loses a life. We have to have Sauron out to do this, but I don't think we mind it because we want Sauron out anyway. He amasses so much value for it. That is a pun. He does get us a lot of value, and so that feels pretty good. All will be one. Whenever we put a counter on a permanent or player, it deals that much damage to target opponent, target creature an opponent controls, or planeswalker controls. Well, we're going to be amassing a ton on our army, so all one is going to help us just deal out some damage. Book of Marzabul. On the first chapter, start of the chapter, we amass Orcs 1. And here's the reminder text, so we'll read it. Put a +1/+1 promi control an army you control. It's also an orc. If you don't control an army, make a 0 orc army. So they actually might unfortunately work together, but anyway, we'll figure that out later. Second strap, mass orcs 2, and then 3 creature control, get +1/+1 menace until end turn. So this is just a way to get a pretty big army and then give it menace. Now that I've read that reminder text, I don't think this affects our plan. We're just still going to amass a bunch of times with these different effects, and I don't think it's going to matter because when we get up top, we're going to talk about some ways that I'm going to try to rinse these army tokens into other things using different effects that sacrifice them and make other things or what have you, so I don't think we mind. Dark Privilege is a card pretty much just for Sauron in this deck. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, sacrifice a creature to regenerate enchanted creature. So what we can do is attach this to Sauron, and then sack one of our army tokens to keep Sauron on the battlefield, which is pretty great. Dreadhorde Invasion, right at the beginning of each turn, we're going to lose a life and amass 1, and then whenever a zombie token you control attacks power 6 or greater, it gets lifelink. This actually probably looks a little bit better than... This might be a little bit better now if they work together, because then our mass token's going to get bigger, which means it could potentially get lifelink. March from the Black Gate, 2 mana, says whenever it enters the battlefield or whenever an army you control attacks you, amass Orcs 1. Seems pretty great because we get to attack and then get the counter on it. Retribution of the Ancients is a great removal card here. We're going to have a lot of extra +1/+1 counters on our army. It says remove X +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. Target creature gets -X on the turn. That's at instant speed. So we can get a big army, and then if someone tries to get rid of it, we could use this ability from Retribution of the Ancients to basically knock out a creature our opponent controls. Rising of the Day. Creatures we control gain haste, and legendary creatures get +1/+1. So this is mainly in here so that we do have a few legendary creatures, because we're going to talk about those when we get up top. But this is mainly here so that our armies can always attack if we want them to. We can get them in for damage. And then on Civil Unrest, seems great in a deck like this. Non-creature tokens you control have a riot. So when they come in, we get their choice of a counter or haste. Haste is pretty great for some of the creatures, because then they're going to be able to hit pretty good. And that's non-token. So all of the creatures that aren't tokens in our deck are going to get that. And that's a great ability. If we could play Rhythm of the Wild, of course we would play that too, but we can. And so if a creature you control, the +1/+1 counter would deal damage to a permanent or player. It deals double that damage instead. This is going to get great on our it's going to get great on our tokens, our army tokens, because then they're just going to get hitting harder. Or if we can put a +1/+1 counter on any other of our creatures, they're going to hit harder. And as you'll see up top, actually, we're playing around with some of the Nazgul and the Wraiths from the set, and they're going to benefit from this as well. Getting into the artifacts, this is a very interesting artifact set, mainly because I wanted to have a ton of fun. I wanted to inject some power into this. We're playing Arcane Signet for the mana. Relic of Sauron, which is from the decks. We can add 2 mana in any combination of red, blue, or black, and then pay 3, tap it to draw 2 cards and discard a card. So we can rent it for that. Not the best mana rock in the world, but it felt right with flavor to play it in Sauron. Soul Ring, the 3 talismans, the 1 ring gets to draw some cards for the cost, and it only felt right to put the 1 ring in this deck, since of course Sauron is so hell-bent on getting the ring back. We're playing Mask of Griselbrand. Equipped creature has flying and lifelink. Seems great for either an army or other things that we have. And then when the equipped creature dies, we can pay X life, where X is power. If we do, we draw that many cards. That could be pretty great as well, because we can, if the army dies, if we sacrifice it or whatever, we could pay and draw some cards. Phyrexian Altar to sacrifice those armies for mana if need be, or any of the other tokens that we create. Shadow Spear, I believe I meant to set this as the Morgul Knife there, the new one from the Realms and Relics set. Of course, creature gets +1/+1 trample and lifelink, so this could be pretty good on our armies, boosting them up and making them big with trample and getting us some life back. The Reaver Cleaver, a pretty expensive piece of equipment, but it's a great piece of equipment. It gets +1/+1 trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, we make that many treasures. That could come in a lot of handy for us. I love the Reaver Cleaver. Normally, I like to pair the Reaver Cleaver with the aggravated assault type of combats scenario, I just didn't choose to do that in this deck. And then Wand of Orcus. This is a card I absolutely love. I wish this card saw more play because it's a ton of fun. It says when a creature attacks or blocks it and zombies you control gain death touch until end of turn. So that's pretty cool. We have a couple ways to make zombie tokens, so we care about that. And then whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many zombie creature tokens. So hopefully we can get in and do some damage. I wish we had more effects like this in these color combinations. I believe, let me think about it. White has one. I think green has one. I wish there was more ones in these color combinations to do this type of effect. But Wand of Orcus will work just well. Getting up into our spells, and we don't have anything super fancy, but man, we have a bunch of really fun stuff. As far as our instants go, Bedevil for some removal. And then Reality Shift from exile removal, and then Hybrid Rapidization for some destroy removal. I thought about bringing Terminate in as well, but I actually took it out for Chaos Warp, because I feel like Chaos Warp is going to be important here. We don't have a ton of ways of hitting all permanent types. We have Feed the Swarm, they can hit enchantments, we can hit Bedevil, they can hit planeswalkers and artifacts. We don't have a lot of things that hit just everything, and that's what I like the Chaos Warp. Big Score and Unexpected Windfall for some draw, because they make us treasures as well. Brainstorm for some draw. Last Tap Plating will give everything we control and us hexproof, and then Amass's one, so that feels like it fits pretty well. Melody Rebirth can protect Sauron, or it's a land on the backside. Orcish Medicine, target creature you control gains a lifelink or indestructible till end of turn, then we can Amass Orcs 1. This gets to play kind of two roles in our deck, right? Because we can give Sauron or our army indestructible, or we can give our army lifelink and just gain a bunch of life back. And then Tainted Strike, this is a card that's going to hopefully come out of nowhere. If an army gets in pretty unblocked or something like that, we can Tainted Strike and potentially take somebody out with infect damage. So I like Tainted Strike. I think it's going to do us a lot of good. Or, if our commander gets big and nobody has anything to block it or anything like that, I like it. Tainted Strike is going to be pretty helpful. It gives a +1/+0 and then that infect. As far as sorceries, Assault on Oscaloth. This one seems interesting. X triple red, Amass Orcs X, then Goblins and Orcs you control gain double strike and haste on the turn. I tried my best to put a Goblin token sub-theme in here. I just couldn't make it fit thematically. So if you really want to get the most out of this card, I really thought about bringing in Legion Warboss, Goblin Raven Master, Goblin Assault, Krenko. Like, I really wanted to bring those guys in. I just couldn't find a cohesive package that I felt worked well. Blessed Sack for some removal, Feed the Swarm for some removal, Fray of Orcs, Mass Orcs 2, and then when you do, it deals damage equal to target creature and opponent controls where X is that amassed army's power. So the bigger the army, the more damage we do for 4 mana here. It is at sorcery speed, which is the only downside, but Reanimate. It came in Sauron's precon, but and this isn't the precon commander, I'm sorry. This Sauron isn't the precon commander. I just wanted to look at the precon because the precon actually has some great value in it. And Reanimated Creature. Ring Sight seems like a very interesting tutor. We can get a card that shares a color with a legendary creature you control, and the ring tempts you at the start of it. So that means that whatever we're always going to have a legendary creature when the spell resolves. So that's kind of interesting. Of course, if we have Sauron out, then we can get almost any color in that deck. The only downside is it has to share a color with legendary creature control. It means you cannot get a colorless card with it. You couldn't get an artifact unless it was colored, and you couldn't get a land. I believe. I'm not entirely sure how the coloring of the lands works, but I bet you I'm wrong on that. Treason of Isengard. Put up to 1 target instant or sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library. Mass Works 2. This gets us some spells back to use. And then Widespread Brutality. Here's an example of another one of our amass spells for the zombies, but what used to be amass 2, and then that army you amass deals damage equal to its power to each non-army creature. This is kind of a board wipe depending on how big our army creature is, and I like this. I like the idea of this, that we could potentially hit it up. Of course, the bigger that army is, the better chance we have of wiping the board, but also the bigger that army is, the worse chance it has of killing all of our creatures in the process, which I think is something that we take. Before we talk about the creatures, we'll talk about our one planeswalker. Nicholas the Adversary just felt like a perfect card in this deck. It has Casualty, which means that we can sack the army potentially and give a Casualty copy of Nicholas, which would be pretty darn good, right? If we had a 9 or 10 power army, this comes in with 9 or 10. +1, each one loses 2 life, and then they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. Of course, the -2 creates a devil token, so that's what we, of course, if you did not play when Ob Nixilis was in Standard, what you would do is you would use the Casualty to make 2 of them. On the one that came in with more loyalty, you would -2 to get the devil, and then on the one with less loyalty, you would +1 to get the everyone losing 2 life unless they discard a card, and then you would gain 2 life. So that's kind of the way the 2 Ob Nixilis work, because the Casualty copy isn't legendary. And then the -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Okay, let's get into the creatures, because this is a really fun set of 25 creatures. I'm really excited about this. I don't know that I would honestly like this deck. Just personally, it's not that I don't think the deck looks fun. I think the deck looks really fun. I just don't know this is what I want from a Grixis creatures deck or a Grixis Amass deck. But pardon me, I love this subsection of creatures. We have Archfiend of Ifnir. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. Remember with Sauron, whenever the ring tempts us, we pitch our hand and draw 4. So the more cards we pitch, we basically, this is kind of a one-sided board wipe, right? Because we can eventually just get rid of all of our opponent's creatures. Blood Artist, whenever it or another creature dies, target opponent loses a life and you gain a life. I almost strictly prefer Zulaport over Blood Artist because Zulaport deals 1 damage to everybody and you 1 loss of life to everyone and you gain them, whereas Blood Artist is targeted. But it could still be beneficial to take 1 person out in general. If this is, I still think Blood Artist is good. I just prefer Zulaport. Dreadhorde Twins, when it comes in, we amass 2, and then zombie tokens you control have trample. Again, we have other ways to make zombie tokens, so we can still take advantage of that. Eternal Skylord, when it comes in, amass 2, and then zombie creatures you control have flying. One of the main ways we're getting the zombie tokens is Ghoul Color Gisa. X or black, tap it, sacrifice another creature, create 2/2 zombie creature tokens where X is that sacrifice creature power. This is a really good way to rinse our army tokens into regular tokens. Sacrifice a big army, 5/6 if we can get it up there, make 6 2/2 zombies, and then we can keep making armies. And now we're kind of rinsing our tokens, our army tokens, into regular tokens that we can still take advantage of these kind of cards for. Gothmog, Mobile Lieutenant, whenever it comes in, Amass works 1, and then creature tokens you control have Death Touch. Well, that's great across the board because now even our little 1/1 armies are still something our opponents have to worry about. Lazotep Channeler is a card from Modern Horizons 2. Whenever you discard a card, you can pay 1 if you do Amass 2. So this is great with Sauron because if we're pitching enough cards and have enough mana, well, we can just amass a bunch of times. And if there's any way for the ring to tempt us in combat, which I don't know that I have any, or before combat, this could potentially load a creature up for ready to attack. We have Lord of the Nazgul, 5 mana Wraith Noble. It says Wraiths you control have protection from ring bearers, and then whenever you cast instant or sorcery, create a 3/3 Wraith token with menace. Then if you control 9 or more Wraiths, Wraiths you control have power toughness 9/9. Until end of turn. So the Lord of the Nazgul in this deck really pairs with the 9 Nazgul that we're allowed to play. So Nazgul is a card that you can have up to 9 cards in a name Nazgul, and there actually is 9 different arts from Nazgul in a set. So this is a card we'd love to play. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts us. Whenever the ring tempts you, you put a +1/+1 counter on each Wraith you control, and then of course we're just going wide and they have Death Touch. This works really well with the Lord of Nazgul because we can basically just make them 9/9s and swing in and do lots of good damage. I love this little combination here, and it fits so well as just a little sub theme in the deck. You know, it's a little few pieces we have, and I like the Nazgul having, when the ring tempts you, put a counter on each Wraith you control, because if the ring tempts us with Sauron out, no matter how many Nazgul we have, they're all going to get, you know, for each Nazgul, each of them gets a counter. So if we have 5 Nazgul, we're getting 5 +1/+1 counters on each of our Wraiths, and our Wraiths are going to become a problem. And I like the Wraiths, the tokens, because they're another great target for this Ghoul Color Gisa to just sack and make some zombie tokens. So you can see that we're starting to try to build this subsection of value. Malheur or Eye Captain, whenever 1 or more counters we put on an army, goblin, or orc you control, put that many +1/+1 counters on it, +1s of 2 instead of 1 on it, instead, or 1 extra. I like that, and it's got menace, so we could get it up as well. Mirkwood Bats, the card that a lot of people are talking about, seems perfect for this deck. Whenever we make or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses a life. This is almost, to me, as good as Zulaport Cutthroat, because you get the benefit of when you make a token, your opponent loses a life. You lose the benefit of gaining the life on the other end, and I think I prefer it. The only downside is this is 4 mana and this is 2. But Orcish Bowmaster is the card that's getting talked about in a lot of other formats than just ours. Flash, whenever it enters the battlefield, whenever an opponent draws a card except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, it deals 1 damage to any target, and then you amass Orcs 1. I like this because you can spread the damage around. You can get rid of a creature. If someone wheels, or, you know, we forced our opponent to draw or something like that, we could ping them for some damage. We can ping to the face. We could ping little creatures. I like Orcish Bowmasters. I don't think it's a slam dunk in our format. Like, I still have some reservations about Orcish Bowmasters. It's a 2 mana 1/1. It's like going to be so easy to take out. But in a deck like this where we're trying to amass, I think it fits literally perfectly for what we're trying to do. We're playing Saruman the White Hand. This is the alternate commander from Sauron, the other Sauron's precon. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass orcs X, where X is that spell's mana value, and then goblins and orcs you control have a word too. So rereading it now, it says put counters on an army you control. It's also an orc. So if we already have a zombie army token, it becomes an orc, and then we get advantage of this ability. This card was the reason why I tried my absolute hardest to slam gobos in here. And I think if I were to try to build this deck for myself, I might try to slam more goblins in here. Maybe like I said, maybe put in the Krenkos and the Legion War Bosses and the Goblin Rabble Masters, because I think they put in enough value on their own. But I couldn't find it, but I think this still helps it because it gives us the Orcs word too. We're playing the Locust God. It feels right. We're drawing cards with Saruman, so I feel like this feels right. Whenever we draw a card, we make a 1/1 insect token with flying and haste. For 4 mana, we can draw and then discard, and then whenever it dies, we return it to its hand at the beginning of the next end step. So Locust God feels right. We're drawing with Saruman when we pitch our hand. So I feel like this is great. It's going to give us a ton of tokens. The best part about Sauron is it doesn't care how many cards are in your hand. It just says discard your hand. So if we're top decking, if we like play our hand out and we don't have any cards left, well, we don't care if the ring tempts us because there's nothing to discard, and then we just get to flat draw for it. That's a scenario where I see the Locust God coming into a lot of handy, is if we have no hand and we're just drawing, playing the cards out, drawing, playing the cards out, it's going to be really good. The Mouth of Sauron, of course, and a card from the main set. Whenever it enters the battlefield, target opponent mills 3, and then we amass Orcs X, where X is the number of instant and sorceries in that player's graveyard. This just seems kind of fun. Come in if we're playing against a Spellslinger opponent, get some counters on our army that way. It's probably not the best amassing creature in the world because it's pretty reliant on our opponents having a ton of things in their graveyard. So I could see a scenario where this card flops, but I thought, hey, it fits the flavor and it feels like it probably should be in there. And then Ugluk of the White Hand. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. If that creature was a goblin or orc, put 2 instead. So this is kind of a way for us to pay off our aristocratic stuff by making this big boy. And this will get big enough that like Reaver Cleaver or Wand of Orcus probably feel pretty good on something like this as well. But let you know, what do you guys think of the Sauron, the Dark Lord down in the comments? If you look at it, the deck's only about $350 as I have it built. I think that's killer. This is a deck I think that's going to perform pretty well because we're playing a pretty great mana base. The spells and all that seem really good. I still feel like this deck, it might need a turn or two to get going. Maybe it's not going to be as fast as some other decks, but I feel like it's going to hit hard. So let's rock a playtest. We get a 2-land opener. It doesn't feel killer. I think I'm going to try to mulligan it just to see if we can get one more. And we do. We mull into a 4-land hand with a talisman. This is killer. This is exactly what we want. So turn 1. So here's the good part about the Smoldering Marsh. You realize that I'm playing basics, but I'm not playing too many. But I am playing Smoldering Marsh and I think I'm also playing Sunken Hollow because this is going to come in tapped turn 1 because I don't have 2 basics. But now my 2 check lands are going to come in untapped because this guy is a mountain forest or mountain swamp. Turn 2, we will go down and put in one of the other 2 and get this talisman down. And again, we have the Reanimate, which we of course wouldn't want to cast. Next turn, we get down the Sulphur Falls. We have 4 mana. For some reason, I thought Sauron was 4 mana. It most certainly isn't. Maybe we tossed down the Mirkwood Bats. Turn 5, get down the Cascade Bluffs. And this is kind of an awkward situation to put down this Mouth of Sauron because we're not going to end up amassing. So I think we just play the Mask of Gristlebrand here. Turn 6, put down the Shivan Reef. And then I see a scenario where here we play this Blackgate. It comes in, we get the army, and we hold up the Chaos Warp. And then the next turn, we can get Sauron down. And I don't think we have any extra mana to equip this. We don't. But maybe we have another Reanimate target here within the next turn. And then the next turn, we probably attach the Gristlebrand, probably to Sauron because he's a 7/6 body. Put that down on him and just start hitting our opponents if need be. So you see, we're kind of semi-unlocking this almost commander damage plan if we want to. I think we got an odd draw here. Again, the Reanimate's going to help us in case Sauron dies or in case one of our opponent's good creatures die. But I like it. Not a bad start. A little slow, but I think it's what we want to see. Here, we see a 2-lander. A lot of our spells are 5, so I think I'm going to go ahead and reroll this one. I see the assault here. We have the rapid. We see, okay, so we see the Shadow Spear, we see the Obnyx, which is 3, and we see the Treason of Isengard, which is 3. Man, I feel like this is a risky hand, but I feel like we don't want to go down to 6 in the scenario, so let's keep it, and we immediately flip a land, so that's killer. I'd probably put the Summit down here first. This is going to come in untapped this turn, this is going to come in untapped in turn 3, so I don't hate it. No, we can't keep the Rapid Hybrid up, but we could just play the Shadow Spear out here. Turn 2, now the pool comes down, and we have this live in case there was something somebody has, but I'm going to go ahead and just doubt it. I'm going to doubt that no one has anything we want to take out with the Feed the Swarm. Turn 3, we'll put down the Haunted Ridge. Now we have 3 mana online. Doesn't make much sense to run out this, considering we don't have anything in our graveyard. And it doesn't make sense to run out the Obnyxless here because we can't casualty it. I think we really want to casualty it. Now, of course, we can't run out the Dark Privilege because we don't have a creature to that. So I'd probably just sit and hold the Rapid Hybridization up in case we need it. Turn 3, okay, well, no lands. We'll put the Nazgul out. Next turn, we see the Talisman, which kind of stinks now because I think we're a teeny bit behind where we want to be. So maybe we play the Talisman and we won't be able to equip the Shadow Spear. And we're just dead on another land. Put this down, Amass. Hopefully we hit another one, and we don't. Jeez, this is a tough hand. Ooh, put the Channeler down. Yeah, this is a tough draw. This is not what you want to see. And I think I'm still playing a decent amount of lands, or at least I think I'm playing a good amount of lands. Like I said, I've said in previous videos that I generally don't have issues when it comes to lands in paper, but it seems like always in Moxfield we always have those issues. Here we go. We'll do one more hand because I think that last one was kind of stinky. 3-lander, we get Borrowed Door, which is pretty cool. Exotic Orchard, hopefully going to help us out. We have the Talisman, so let's keep it. Turn 1, let's toss the Borrowed Door down in tap since we don't have a legendary creature. Turn 2, we will slam the Exotic Orchard down and get this Talisman down. All right, turn 3, if we see the Shipwreck Marsh, which is kind of cool, it means we're going to be okay. 3, 4 mana this turn. I think we put the Ugluk down. Turn 5, we get a Shipwreck Marsh. Let's play this Nazgul, and we can keep this up, and just in case we need to protect either of them. Turn 6, we missed the land, but I'd say let's get the All-Would-Be one down. Again, we missed the land again. Jeez, we're getting killed this game. We'll do the Unexpected Windfall. I would probably pitch, I don't know, probably the Isengard, and then this if we haven't used it yet. Draw 2. There we go. We get our land for turn and an Arcane Signet, and then the next turn now we can dump Sauron down. So that was kind of killer again, and maybe it is an issue of land count. I don't know. I've never really had issues. This one's 33. Maybe that's a little bit of a pipe dream. Normally I have no issues with 33 or 34 lands, but like I said, I think if we did this 10 or 20 times, maybe we'd see a more accurate representation of our land draws. But I thought I had enough mana artifacts, but maybe not. Maybe my issue is I need to pull in some more signets or something like that. Or go up on the land count. You guys can let me know what you think down in the comments after the playtest. But let me know what you think down in the description. Like if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see some more Lord of the Rings content. We got a bunch of stuff coming, and I will catch you guys next time.